I'm Toby, and this mixed reality project immerses you in a satirical, dystopian journey through the everyday spaces of our home, where smart devices don't just listen in and speak, they demand our subservience.
The project is situated across the generic spaces you find in everyday houses. To find out more about this, I performed an ethnographic observation and a contextual inquiry across two locations. From these conversations and observations, I established the following foundations. Living rooms act as shared comfort zones, spaces where we can relax together and harbour social interactions. Conversations reveal bedrooms as intimate, personal environments. These are usually personalised to the inhabitants' interests. Bathrooms are similarly private spaces, yet they often feel confined and somewhat surgical in their nature. Kitchens, by contrast, tend to be highly functional spaces, filled with a variety of appliances and technology that we use every day. Lastly, hallways act as liminal transition zones, linking these key spaces together.
This let me create a hierarchy of the spaces, based on how personal each zone is.
Beyond these social characteristics, further discussions and auditory observations revealed how digital noise can proliferate into each room in the house. For example, kitchens, which were once filled with analog sounds, are now populated by digital beeps and notifications from the smart devices that inhabit them. This proliferation is temporal. The sounds of the house today differ from that a decade ago and will evolve going into the future. But smart technologies have propagated beyond the kitchen, into living spaces and even the bedroom. These often act not just as speakers, but listen in and collect data on our most personal experiences. These present and future attitudes towards smart devices were a key point of inquiry in my initial observations. While participants often narrated these devices as usable and time-saving, they were often concerned with the surveillance and privacy aspects associated with them. This temporal imposition of technology into our living spaces is something that I wanted to explore during the performance. In addition to these observations, I created physical space maps of both locations to later inform the prototype design. Within these maps, I noted the locations of key technological appliances, things like IoT, smart kettles, fridges, washing machines, and more. I then catalogued the computing artifacts found ubiquitously across both locations.
This catalogue was used to later inform which appliances should be integrated into the experience.
I wanted to bundle these perspectives together into an Orwellian satirical experience that makes users think not just about the devices in their homes, but the interactions they have with them. This follows a reduction to absurdity, exploring far-fetched, dystopian concepts of the smart devices yet to come. This focuses particularly on sound, making use of locative media and digital soundscape. The core experience loop involves users foraging around the home in search of objects. This relates strongly to the collecting ideation card. This is enchanted by a locative soundscape that evolves the domestic sounds usually associated with home appliances, ranging from the traditional analog sounds to more digital noise we associate with smart devices. Moreover, the soundscape is spatially tied to real-world objects in the home and is dynamic to obstacles, orientation, and distances. I'd originally planned to implement this with GeoTourist, but inaccuracies in mobile phone tracking were exemplified in the confined spaces of a house. To overcome this, I developed a bespoke programming GameMaker to handle the soundscape. I extended inbuilt spatial audio with sound attenuation, following the inverse square law to make sounds quieter with distance. I implemented raycasting to determine if a wall or obstacle is blocking sound from reaching the user. This supports both zones of ambience and spatial sound emitters. Moreover, the soundscape is visualized through a Wizard of Oz style controller interface. Each room features its own base ambience, exhibiting the key characteristics of that particular space. The soundscape upgrades, first in non-personal areas like the kitchen and bathroom, before advancing through the spatial hierarchy to the more personal spaces, such as the bedroom and the living room. This represents the marching imposement of digital noise and how it can proliferate into our most personal spaces. For example, here's how the sounds of a washing machine change in the experience.
In your last wash, I detected...
Advancements in technology are locatively announced around television objects. These take the form of satirical advertisements, overemphasizing the invasive nature of this new era technology.
The satirical guise provides an effective medium for the exaggeration of key concepts. Humor is used to capture attention and forge emotional connection through laughter. Here is an example announcement.
Introducing the Clean Score 3000, because your clothes should be judged. The Clean Score 3000 doesn't just wash your clothes, it gives your wardrobe a social score.
To supervise the player into selecting appropriate objects, the soundscape supplies adaptive trend notifications. These announce classifications of objects that are currently in fashion, guiding the player towards key spaces.
Crockery posts dominate the web. Turn plates into posts today. No dish, prepare to be served, a side of #irrelevance.
At this point you might be asking, but what's the point in all of this foraging, and how is this a performance? During my contextual inquiry, one participant remarked that if it was a man standing in their kitchen surveilling them, it would feel a lot different than a smart device. I wanted to bring that perspective into reality for a physical entity embedded in the home. Having this as a physical entity transcends the physio-digital barriers of protection usually offered by these smart devices, and dominates not just the physical space, but the personal security and comfort afforded by the home environment. The idea ultimately manifested as him. He is a large head sculpture with overtly expressive facial features and large protruding eyeballs. This is symmetric to the surveillance features we see in the smart devices in our home. He's designed to make the users feel uncomfortable.
The base shape was carved out of expanding foam, with details being added with paper mache over the top. He is brought to life by projection mapping, adding immersion and emotion to his stony facade. Facial movements are handled parametrically, with 4 distinct moods: happy, neutral, sad, and angry. This is integrated with the localization and soundscape controller, meaning his eyes can track the users as they walk around the room. In the experience, he assumes an audience role, receiving and judging items the user has collected. The user finds an item to gift to the head. This is guided by the trend notifications mentioned earlier. The user picks up the item and carries it to the head. Placing it in front triggers the gifting sequence. An initial reaction acknowledges the gift. It looks down at the gift and then back up at the user. As it passes judgment on the gift, it squints towards the user, directing discomfort and unease. Climax. The head expresses judgment, completing the feedback loop. If the gift isn't trendy, then the head can also react with anger. Or even sadness. This forms a primitive performance relationship built on sound symbolism, but how did users react? I ran 2 formative sessions, observing participants as they engaged with the installation and then collecting their feedback for a qualitative survey. Users often experimented with different objects to discover what works and what doesn't. Positive feedback reinforced their decisions and increased task success rates going forwards. However, there was instances where the locative soundscape confused users. One user turned on their physical shower because of the sounds made by its digital twin. Owing to the confined locations, users often occluded the projected image with their bodies, breaking immersion to initiate gift sequences. Sometimes, participants missed audio cues, not realizing that they needed to move closer to the source to hear them clearly. Despite these issues, both participants managed to progress through the experience. But how did they feel about the installation? I conducted a user survey to find out. Firstly, I asked, as you wandered through each room, what sounds stood out to you, and how did they evolve? One participant likened the soundscape to 2 distinct worlds, one gentle and quiet, the other overbearing, digital and robotic. The other mentioned how hearing a digital presence in the bathroom feels intrusive and strange. I then asked what participants felt their relationship with the head was. One user felt it was a metaphor for social media, and likened the performance to that of an online influencer. The other discussed wanting to entertain the head and trying to make it happy. Lastly, I asked how the experience made them feel. They both agreed that the experience was unusual, but enjoyed it. One user mentioned that it made them think more about the noises in their own home and the value of silence. The other brought up how the head existing in the living room felt like a guest they had to entertain. I think users engaged with the installation well, and each found something unique to take away from it. Both successfully identified digital noise as an underlying theme, and feel more aware of technology in the home as a result. Since I ran the installation across 2 locations, relocation would be a challenge. It needed to be fast to set up. I did quick scaling and image relocation to allow for this. In this version, I localized the user manually, which was tedious and inaccurate. Real-time outside-in tracking would alleviate the issues I faced with this, but was out of scope for this project. I am happy with my results. I found the project fun and learned a lot about locative media and the mathematics behind projection mapping. I'm happy with my results and think the satirical guise obviates it coming across as a Daily Mail-like doomsday piece on impending technology. Participants enjoyed it and reflected well on their experiences. If I had more time, I'd like to see how users could collaborate in this unique space.